Gridiron Warrior podcast is built for strength and football coaches who want to run the best possible programs for their athletes and their communities. Each episode delivers simple, practical coaching advice that transfers straight from the weight room to the field. No theory, no fluff, no fancy words, just real world strategies from coaches that are living it. So you can build stronger, faster, more durable athletes at any level. From the beginning, I've committed to only bringing on sponsors that I myself use and would confidently recommend to any coach. And that's why I'm fired up to partner with Train Heroic. Train Heroic is the platform I use to write programs, run my own training, and deliver workouts to athletes and whole teams. It's clean, it's coach friendly, and your athletes are actually going to go in the app and use it and enjoy it, compared to some of the other ones that are out there. If you're a strength coach looking for a better way to program and get that information to your athletes, or if you're a coach and you just want, plug and play, ready to go training programs that you don't have to build, Train Heroic is it, okay? And here's the kicker for anyone that is a supporter of the Gridiron Warrior. Start a free 90-day trial of Train Heroic using the link, trainheroic.com/Gridiron Warrior, and I'll drop 2 12-week training programs right into your account so that you don't have to start from scratch. You can start with 2 12-week programs built in there, tweak them, change them, customize them, and get a good feel of using the app. And those will be in there for you, so you can use those. So head to www.trainheroic.com/Gridiron Warrior, start your 90-day free trial, and reply to your welcome email saying that you want those 2 12-week training programs from me, and I'll make sure you get those. If you're a high school coach trying to bring structure and feedback to your jump and speed training, you need to check out the Plow Mat. The switch mat technology is precise, durable, and it's far more reliable than those laser-based systems. More importantly, the feedback is instant. Your jump height, your contact time, RSI, it's all shown on the remote, the controller, and it's logged in their app as well. You can use it every single day as a checkpoint. Are your athletes hitting plow numbers or thresholds? We use it in season to gauge readiness. You can check their ground reaction force and see if their springs are there as well. It's something that you'll bring out and use every single day in the weight room. If you follow Rich Burnett, the founder, you already know that the education piece is big too. He's a high school guy at heart, and so is the company. So, Plow Mat is there to provide everything that we talk about in Gridiron Warrior, actionable results, real service, great customer service, and they're trying to bring jump training to the next level. So happy to support them. Check out the Plow. Today on the podcast, we have Coach Nick Crouse from Platteview High School out in Nebraska. He is the NHSSCA, National High School Strength Coach Association, Nebraska State Coach of the Year. So we had him come in and talk about multi-sport athletes and how do you deal with that at the high school level? How do you get them strong, even though they're playing sports year round? We talked about Gen Pop students and what they're doing and how do you train them, even though they're not getting ready for sport. We just talked overall about how he sets up their strength conditioning classes during the day to take care of all their student athletes. So this is a great listen. If you're a high school strength coach, you're going to want to tune in. All right, we're back for another episode of the Gridiron Warrior podcast. Today, I have Coach Nick Crouse on the podcast for us from Springfield. I'm looking over my notes. Springfield, Platteview, Community District, something. And then you work directly out of Platteview High School in Nebraska. Yes?
Yep.
You can correct me for all my mistakes along the way here, but Coach, somebody recommended it. I got to go back later and look at the notes and said that they said you're a phenomenal strength coach. You got a lot of good information to share. You would help our audience out big time. I'm fired up to have you on the show. Talked about it in the intro before this, but we're going to talk about multi-sport athletes at the high school level. We're going to talk about training Gen Pop athletes at the high school level and just how you have things set up there and what works for you guys. But you can make it as long or as short as you want. Tell us your story, how you got there, and maybe give us some background about the school in terms of maybe the size, the level of competition. If kids have gone on to the next level, are they more Division I, Division II, Division III? Where are they kind of ending up? Give us your story.
Yeah. First off, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to join you, and I appreciate you asking me to jump on here. Like you said, Nick Crouse. I'm the director of strength and conditioning at Platteview High School, Springfield, Nebraska, southwest corner of the Omaha Metro. So for your audience to kind of get understanding there. My background, this is my 12th year in education, all at the high school level. Um, Started off, I knew I wanted to get into the field, but I didn't know how to. And my one thought was, I'm going to go get a PE degree because that seems to be the best fit. And I feel like I'm a byproduct of the field at the high school level exploding at the right time. So I was able to, very fortunate to get a job right after I student taught. Very fortunate of how things worked out. Guy I replaced was a guy I worked under when I student taught called Barry Bauer. And we had some administrative shuffling going around, and he was asked to be elevated to be the AD. And he goes, I'm only going to take it if you guys hire Nick. So very fortunate. I making good impressions and making the big time where you're at. Fortunately worked out for me. Started off 5 years in a small town called Red Oak. It's actually my hometown in Southwest Iowa, actually about an hour from where I'm at right now. Got there for 5 years, found a new opportunity over here in Springfield, and was too good of a job to pass up. So my wife and I moved up here, and I'm in my 7th year here now. So, like I said, kind of just a general PE background. I've done a lot of the strength and conditioning stuff on the side and pursued those passions and a lot of that education from there. So kind of our demographics, we're a Class B school. It's the second biggest class in the state of Nebraska, but we kind of sit right on the very bottom. So we are the cutoff on the baseline of the bottom is 160 students, 160 male students, 9 through 11, and we're sitting at 162-ish. So we're at the very bottom. We kind of bounce between that there. So there's some demographical challenges with us just from a size standpoint and trying to compete with other things, but we do what we can to kind of neutralize some of that. As far as the types of kids we get, we're kind of an interesting melting pot. We're a very suburban school, so we have a lot of the rural farm kids, we have the shop kids, but we also get some of the suburban students as well. So it's an interesting mix. But the thing I love about it is it's that small school, tight knit community. So the type of kids we get a ton of kids that are just multi-sport athletes that they just want to play. A lot of the kids that go on and play for us are going to be your NAIA Division III type kids. We've been very fortunate in my 7 years here. We've had 2 kids go Division I. We just had a kid that is a freshman at Stanford right now as a tight end. My first year, we had a kid that went to South Dakota. So we've had FBS, we've had FCS. We get quite a few Division II school kids, boys and girls, and then we'll get a ton of D3 NAIA kids as well.
What are your most successful sports there? At least the past bunch.
Yeah. So our basketball program has had a lot of success. We were state runner up a few years ago. Baseball teams had a really good run the last few years. They've qualified for 3 straight state tournaments. So a lot of the basketball, volleyball has had a lot of good runs the last few years. Track team has had some success on and off. We co-op in soccer. And so that's been an interesting mix. They've had some decent success. They've fallen short in the district final 3 straight years. So we're trying to punch that ticket through there. So we see some relative success across the board, which is good. Our kids are competitive in a lot of different things, especially for the size of school we are.
Awesome. And I think when you're successful across the board, it gives clues that, okay, like you've got a lot of good things rolling. It sounds like the athletic director is really supportive of sports. And then I've seen your weight room. If you want to kind of talk about your weight room a little bit, it's a pretty nice weight room, especially for the high school level. I mean, New England, so this is always the thing too. Everyone says, oh, go get a high school job. I would love a high school job, to be honest with you. But it's not a thing up here in New England yet. It's not a very, down south and out that way. Yeah, it's a little bit more prevalent, a little bit more common. But I'm telling you, man, that high school weight room you have out there is pretty impressive. So tell us about that a little bit, and then maybe give us a layout of how class works, how the structure works. I mean, you can start all the way down with 7th graders, like we talked about it, and climb your way up.
Yeah. So kind of going back to your New England piece there for a second, I've got relatives that live in Delaware. So they're on my wife's side. So when her and I first started dating, met them, and they asked me what I did, and I told them, and they're like, that's foreign to us. Like, what are you talking about? So like you said, there's a different shift around, no matter where you're at in the country, there's different pieces there. But going to our facility, we are very fortunate. Not going to shy away from that. We are in our 3rd year of a brand new facility, 3,800 square feet, fully outfitted by Sornex. We have 18 total platforms. We have 12 power racks and 6 half racks. So down the middle of our room is 6 rack and a halves. Then on the far side of the room, we have 6 power racks. And then we have 28 yards of turf. That's 5 yards wide. So we really don't have any excuse to not be able to get done what we need to get done, especially for the size that we are. Our classes cap at 36 kids. So we've got plenty of space to do what we need to do. Kind of a sweet spot of class sizes, group sizes there and everything. The nice part about our facility and our size is it allows us to be very functional and get everything we need to get done within the school day because we have 44 minutes bell to bell. So very tight window for us to train those 36 kids. So it allows us to be efficient. But in our summer, it allows us to go up to 55, 60 kids in a session if we need to. We get a little more time there, but it allows us to expand and kind of be multifunctional with it. So we can adapt it as we grow and everything. And so kind of to take a step back of our background a little bit, but it'll tie into our facility, is we're in a part of the Omaha Metro that's really exploding. A lot of the growth is coming down to our district. We're looking at putting out a bond issue to build another elementary school, which is projected to add almost, I want to say, they don't quote me on this, could add up to 1,000 students district wide. So we're getting ready to almost double our size here in the next 10 years. And so when we were designing our facility, I went to our school board and our superintendent and I said, we need to have something that's multifunctional to serve us now, but we can also use and grow into as we wanted, but also fit the financial needs that we needed. And so Sorinex was phenomenal helping us do that. And it allows us to be very, very functional with what we do. So as far as our class structure, I mentioned we're 44 minutes bell to bell. We get roughly 30 to 32 minutes, depending on the day, to train. After our setup, tear down, prep work, instructional time, all that stuff. And so we'll get kids 9 through 12 in our high school classes. And I'll get the ranges from a kid that's never lifted weights before to a kid that, like I mentioned earlier, is an FBS Power 5 type kid. So a unique challenge for us is how do we differentiate our training and our instruction to fit the needs of all those kids while also giving them what they need to be successful.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to jump in, get this thing started, because you may have a class and it's kind of first come, first serve, right? It's based on the rest of their schedule. So you may have an in-season football player. And I'm thinking in my head, 36 minutes is plenty of time to get an in-season lift in. But you might also have an off-season volleyball player, and you might have an upperclassman off-season volleyball player and a freshman volleyball player. So talk about those systems a little bit of when, the kids come into class, is it that day everyone has, the template is the same, but then the intensities and the volumes are going to, and the exercise may adjust depending on who the kid is. Is it, are you setting it up on a team builder or a trade road or anything like that? Give us a little bit more detail there. Because it sounds like you're breaking it up. Sounds like you're doing a great job of identifying the right program for the right kid at the right time of year. But that's a lot to manage at one time. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, it's a big puzzle, like you said. So a little bit more context. We use Team Builder, phenomenal product to allow us to differentiate and track a lot of things. Myself, along with 2 other instructors, all run sessions throughout the day. So give you a little more context is being able to have our systems in place. So that way, when there is turnover, as far as who's running the room, everyone knows it is on the same page with everything. So we utilize a functional piece of the tier system. So that's kind of our framework, but then we fit it to our mold to do what we need to do. So everyone comes in and everyone's emphasis for the day as far as movements is going to be the same, but the type of movement or the intensities are going to change based on what they need. So we actually set our program up to train qualities rather than sports. So going back to kind of what we said earlier, we have about 50% of our population is multi-sport athletes. That's our total high school population. So we need to be able to fit a lot of different needs and fit a lot of different puzzle pieces together to make us successful across the board. So we'll have our introductory freshman program, and that's just pure strength development. We're doing a ton of APRE work, and that's a lot of force dominant movements. So then we'll have a strength program, a size program, a speed program, a power program, and we'll run different modalities through there. So you may see some triphasic principles with some kids. You'll see some hypertrophy clusters with some kids. You'll see some force and power clusters with other kids. You'll see some Jim Windler 5-3-1 with some certain kids. So it all kind of depends on where they're at. But the thing that we try to do is we try to allow it so it's easy to still coach and manage the room. So everyone's going to be squatting at the same time. Some kids may be front squatting, some kids may be back squatting, some kids may be Hatfield squatting, some kids may be belt squatting. We got to work around injuries and stuff like that. But the intensities are very the same, but we're still coaching a squat. So there's small minor things that change, but it allows us to reach all of our kids that we need to, but allows us to get them exactly what they need at that day. So we have to adjust the rest times and everything there. But we've kind of found a sweet spot with our team builder account is we use the whiteboard feature within it. So our kids are assigned certain spots and it allows the room to kind of manage itself. So it frees us up to coach. And that's been one of the biggest game changers for us as we've been rolling is our coaches can coach because the kids systematically know, hey, here's where I need to be. And we assign certain spots to the room and they just know that they need to go. So it's also allowed them to take more ownership as far as, hey, Johnny, you're not where you're supposed to be. We got to get going here. So that's systematically has helped us out a ton. But kind of going back to the root of the point, you're going to see a lot of different intensities and whatnot there, but a lot of the movements are going to be the same to make it easier to coach up.
You setting those up with iPads on the rack where they kids, because I'm an old school, I'm still pen and paper. And part of me is, I had I forget which guest on a couple episodes ago, but we're talking about, this is the last place where phones aren't allowed. I know schools do that too, where they lock the phones up for the day. But, my theory is, hey, you're in here for an hour, get off your phone, put something else like a barbell or a dumbbell in your hand. So I'm still old school. I print the sheets out and it's extra work for me to go back and change things. But so you're doing it on the rack, kids can go in and you're teaching that though. Are you teaching that in the summer as well when the 7th graders are coming in so they learn how to do it before they even get into school?
Yeah. So we have iPads at the rack, mob armor mounts to it. And then we're fortunate enough, we have Vitruve, but we can get into a little bit of that as we go as well. But we introduce Team Builder to our kids as 8th graders when I have them in class, as they go through. I first get our kids as 7th graders, and some are going into 7th grade and then some are going into 8th grade. Those summers, I don't necessarily try. I used to teach Team Builder. Our groups have gotten so much bigger now, where time efficiency wise, it's one of those things where it's more efficient for us to coach them up on movements. We can teach the technology piece later. So when I get them in school, that's where we'll start to teach kind of, hey, how do we function in our room? How do we record everything from there? So we'll utilize Team Builder in class and navigate that a little bit. That's been a game changer, kind of like you mentioned, from a data collection standpoint and a data analysis standpoint. There are times where technology is technology. And so it would be better to have pen and paper, especially on days where kids, you can tell, have been on technology a ton and they may need to get away from it for a minute. But I feel like we've found a good balance between not overloading on the technology, utilizing it for what we need, what we find important, and then making it most efficient for us.
Well, a lot of people don't know this, and I'll share this with my audience here on the podcast, but I was actually a multi-sport athlete myself for a little bit in college. Division III, Springfield College in Massachusetts, a track and field and a football guy because I drew a hammer in high school. There's not many states that throw the hammer, so I had a little leg up on everybody because I'd already done it before. And after 2 years of that, I said, I'm not as strong as the football team because they're getting an off season to get stronger, put an emphasis on that. And I'm going right into indoor track and field and outdoor track and field. And then I said, I'm also not as strong as the outdoor track and, because they're getting the fall to get stronger and I'm in season for football. So for me, it was like, I felt myself, I didn't get that off season period to really grow and develop and put myself and be okay with being sore. Because I was always kind of in an in-season training mode. How do you combat that? How do you deal with that? How do you kind of educate the kids at the high school level? You're just training year round. Let's be real, and that's for them. Sometimes they think, oh, I have a game today or I have a game tomorrow. And I don't know if I should be doing this, whatever you're going to do for that day. How do you work that conversation? How do you explain that to either the sport coaches that might be a little apprehensive and definitely the kids themselves? And how do you push them even though they're still in season year round?
Yeah, that's a great question. First off, like you said, as far as coaches, there's the number one buy-in. And I'm very fortunate with a coaching staff in a department that trusts what I do. I am the first full-time strength coach here. They had coaches before that were kind of teaching a few classes here and there. But I'm the first full-time director. And so when I came in, the principal and athletic director that hired me, Ron Alexander, did a phenomenal job we had an all coaches meeting, and he allowed me to give out my whole philosophy, why we do things the way we do, and kind of show the roadmap of, hey, here's how I'm going to help you guys be successful, but it's also a two-way street. Our coaches know that I have an open door policy. And they know, hey, like if we got something going on, we need to talk about it. Like we need to make sure we're setting our kids up for success. So that dialogue helps 100%. I want to say throughout our summer training, I think 75% of our head coaches were coming through our weight room, like a ton of support. So I don't overlook the fact of how blessed I am with the support we have. With that, we start off every semester as we're kind of talking through things as far as our philosophies and what we want to do in training. And our philosophy is we're going to develop all the way through. We'll adjust things as we go. Most people have probably seen the stoplight chart. I think Cody Hughes made it popular. I don't know where it fully originated from, but that's who I got it from. And so we'll adjust volumes mainly, but we're going to keep the intensities high. And I tell our kids all the time, like, we're trying to develop for the postseason. Like, I understand you have a game week 1 or week 2 of your season, but the end goal isn't to be successful early in the year. It's to have you ready to go when we need you the most. And so our kids, it took a couple of years to really fully get bought in. But now it's just what we do. Like, they don't know anything different and we just roll with it. Having VBT helps us a little bit because we can kind of dial in those intensities even a little bit more than what a true percentage or an APRE maybe does a little bit. But we try and teach on the front end of, hey, here's why we're trying to do what we do. So our varsity athletes will really pull back the volume to kind of limit the fatigue. It's easier for those 1 time a week competitions versus the multi-sport. The winter's wild and the spring is even wilder with all those kids that have 2, 3, 4 competitions a week. But I also tell those kids, like, hey, there may be days where you may have a competition Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. That competition on Tuesday, we're probably just going to wipe off, like, because you're going to go back to back later. Like, we need to train early in the week and then we'll dial it down later in the week when you're probably more fatigued and beat up. But again, it's a two-way street. Like, the kids need to know what the thought process is, because everyone wants to say kids are different. They're not different. They just want to know more. Like, they have all the tools in their hands right now to find information that I believe that kids want to know. And once you give them the why behind it, they're willing to trust you. So we do a ton of education pieces to kind of give them the background there. Our younger kids, our JVs, our reserves / freshmen, it's open and honest. Hey, do you want to be a freshman or JV all-star, or do you want to develop yourself and be the best varsity player that you can be when your time comes? And when you put it in that context, then they start to understand, like, hey, we're going to train through some stuff. That's not me saying that their competitions aren't important, but it's to keep the main thing, and kind of keep it in perspective of, hey, what's our end goal? And we need to keep working towards that end goal. The other thing is when I get them early, as we all know, that growth and development spikes a lot faster. So you can kind of go hook, line, and sinker a little bit as far as, hey, look, I told you, if you guys trust me, you're going to start developing. And then that kind of gets a little bit more buy-in there.
Yeah, I have the conversation, and we're at like week 5, week 6 right now of the season with our freshmen, because they come in and we slow cook them through August. We hit some tempos, we start building them up, but like, I'll still push them even though they're practicing, and they're like, coach, I'm practicing, I'm sore. I'm like, enjoy it, because you're not that sore, and you're going to find out in a couple of years when you're a starter and you're practicing more and you're doing more on the bag. Hey, you're like, man, I wish I could push myself like I could when I was a freshman. So I always have that conversation of like, go for it now, like get as much as you can out of it now. And if you think you're tired, you're not, but just keep going. It's going to be okay. Where do you, I guess, not where do you, but how do you define what group somebody should be in? And when there's time to move them into a different standard or work on a different quality with them? I mean, it's obviously time of year dependent, but also I'm sure there's some sort of standards of, okay, this guy is not ready to jump into the BBT group because he's a clown and he doesn't pay attention. And from a maturity standpoint, maybe he's not ready, but there's other kids that are phenomenal, and you're like, how's this kid a freshman? He's strong. He's ready. We got to move him up into the BBT group early. So talk about maybe how you put people in the correct places, and how do you know when it's time to move somebody into a different group?
Yeah. So we have strength standards, and early in my career, I wanted to do strength standards based on a certain amount of weight. And then as I got into it, I realized that was not the smartest thing in the world. So we do everything body weight percentage wise, just because that's a more even playing field, in my opinion, especially with the high school population. So we do everything based on body weight standards, and we'll go from there. Depending on, so it breaks down to strength standard and training time. So those two things have to come together. Another mistake I made early in my career is I looked at, okay, like that freshman example you mentioned, this kid's really strong, so let's just move him. Like, he's ready to go. What I was missing out on was the learning about training. And so that was a mistake. I said, hey, no matter what, like, so I've got a couple freshmen right now they're dudes. Like, they're going to be really, really good players for us, and they're pretty strong and they're pretty big for our demographic. But what I've learned over the last few years is I can't speed it up too much. Like, we may feel like, hey, as sophomores, we're going to need them, but I also have to pull myself back from the sport coaching mode and look at the training mode and say, hey, they're still at a training age of 1. Like, we gotta slow cook this thing a little bit. And I feel like a lot of coaches get into that a little bit. They want to get them ready to go because they got to answer as sport coaches. But on the same time, we have to be the experts and understand, like, we got to trust ourselves here a little bit. So our standards, they stay in our introductory program for 2 full semesters. Doesn't matter what strength standards they hit, everything like that. Then once they're at 2 full semesters and the strength standards, then they'll move on. Caveat to that is we'll count our summer training as a half a semester. So if they're 80% or more in our summer training, then when we get to spring break of their freshman year, if they've hit their strength standards, we'll introduce them into that next phase. So that's kind of the carrot of, hey, if you're fully bought in, you're developed, you're ready to go, and you show us that you could do it, let's go. You've developed that trust, and you've shown that you're bought in. From there, we'll go into what we call our strength program. It's our force production program. We just still want to get really strong. So we're still focusing on that in our introductory program, but you're going to see a lot of different movements. So in our intro program, it's a ton of APRE work. You're going to get a lot of front squat, a lot of RDL, stuff like that. In the strength program, that's where we'll switch to a back squat. That's where we'll switch to start to introduce the Olympic movements, things of that nature. And they'll generally stay on that through their sophomore year. The reason we do that is because through our data over the last 7 years, we've seen, and research just kind of supported it, that at that young training age, the more force dominant they become, generally their other metrics improve. Like, they're not trained enough to where you're going to see that decrease in your power outputs and things like that. So we want to keep that training runway as long as possible. So once they get into that sophomore year, late sophomore year, stuff like that, that's where we really start to look at what do they need for their sport. So then we'll look at, okay, are you lacking in maybe some rate of force development? Do we need to focus on some power development, stuff like that? Are you still size deficient? Do we need to add some lean mass, everything there? Are you measurables? Are you at where you need to be? Okay, let's just keep getting stronger and keep training. So that's kind of where we break it down there. So really those first 2 years, if you came and looked at our system, you're like, holy smokes. But really those first 2 years is let's get as strong as possible. Like, let's get after it. Let's learn how to strain a little bit. And let's go from there. Then we'll start to branch off as we go. Now, we get that freshman, like I said, that's a freak. He moves on to the strength program. He's knocking it out of the park. We may switch it a little earlier if we know, hey, he's going to need this and we need to make the change as long as he's met all the measurables. But we won't compromise what we feel is important to our program on a training standpoint to speed up the development.
I've been there too, where, we'll have freshmen that come in and they're well trained, right? They've been after it and they know how to lift weights and they can lift some really heavy weights. And you're like, okay, like, this kid's a stud. I got to move on to another group. And I've never regretted keeping them back for another group. There's times where, we have he's a redshirt freshman now, but he's a starter offensive lineman, 330 pounds. He's huge. Now, I mean, his first offseason, we had 5 5:45 or something on there for a rep out of like a 5:31. And those are days where you're like, oh my goodness, like, does he need to be doing this? Does he need to be? But the answer is yes, because he hasn't learned how to strain yet, and that's an off-season thing. And in season, we were kind of, taking care of him. He's playing, so he's not getting that developmental lift on Fridays. Those kids were straining on Fridays. So like, I would feel better if he wasn't in, and then we switch him in the offseason. But he hadn't been through a little bit of strain, a little adversity. How do you finish a set? He was on that in-seat where it's all 4x2, 4x3. It's, I'm never going to put you in the danger zone. So it's one of those, like, I'm going to keep him in this group for a little bit more, even though he keeps saying, why am I still in this group? What's going on here? I'm like, every time you ask, I had 2 weeks. So, that's your fault. You've been in here for a long time because you keep asking when you're going to leave the group. So, yeah, it's one of those things that I've never regretted holding the kid back. I have regretted moving kids up too soon, and I'll do that sometimes. And it's hard. It's hard for me to take that back and be like, hey, I thought you were ready for this. You're not ready for this. I got to take you back. That's a kick for them. But if you say, hey, you're crushing it. Now I need you to help everyone else in the group get better. I shifted to like, hey, if you're a little bit more of a leader, if you're a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more, if we can get some more out of your teammates, then I'll move you up and you can move up. Now, the only place I won't split the group up is on the field stuff. Other than, position wise, I'll split up plyometrics because my big guys and my skill guys and plyos. But our freshmen are going to do the same running and they're going to do the same plyos and speed work and things like that. Now, when we do one-on-ones and stuff like that, it gets quickly sorted out. Sometimes the young guys think they can compete with the old guys and they find out they can't. So, 30 to 40 minutes doesn't sound like you have a ton of time to do speed work and things like that. But I bet in the summer you do.
Yeah. So So our school year layout will train or will lift, or we call them our strength days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Tuesday, Thursday are our speed development days, things like that. So generally Tuesday is our change of direction emphasis. Thursday is our max velocity work. So our general lifts are squat Monday. In the fall, it switches throughout the year. But in the fall right now, we'll squat Monday, clean and bench Wednesday, deadlift Friday. And so we want to get our max velocity work as far away from our squat work as possible to kind of get that recovery. And then we'll do our change of direction stuff is generally more lower intensity, but we'll spike the intensity here and there as we go, knowing that we just squatted the day before. In the summer, we'll train Monday through Thursday, roughly 60 minutes. Some days we'll stretch it to 70 if we need to. I'm fortunate enough, like I said, with our coach buy-in, I generally rotate between 6 and 7 assistants in the summer. And so 2 of those this last summer were either an intern or a previous intern. So they had a general understanding of what we're looking for. So if I know, hey, this session's going to run long, I have staff that I can trust to get the next one rolling and we can kind of overlap and be efficient with our time there. So we'll go speed development right at the start of the session, and then we'll come in and lift and we'll pair it as at max velocity, as at acceleration, change of direction, multi-directionals, everything like that. So that's how kind of we differentiate between the summer and the school year.
Awesome. Last thing I wanted to hit on, we didn't really get into it. You have some kids that probably don't play sports. Sounds like most play sports, but there's probably a handful that don't. I've had other coaches come on here and you don't train kids any different. You want them to be athletes. You want them to be athletic for life. You're not going to have a gen pop person come in and put them just on machines. That doesn't make sense. Like, we train everyone to be athletic and be humans that can run around for the rest of their lives. So I know the training probably doesn't differ too much, but what are some things you're doing differently with a kid that is not going on to play a sport or doing anything like that? So you can probably put different goals in front of them to go get. So how do you train the gen pop kids?
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic with our Gen Pop kids because they still want to be a part of the culture and they want to shoot for those goals and they want to move up as well. So right now I've got some Gen Pop kids on our size program. Like, they just want to be giant meatheads. So hey, let's steer right into that one. But our general Gen Pop kids will be our intro program and our strength development because they just want to learn how to train. They want to come in here during the day. They want to be a part of it. They like any other kid, they want to get strong. Like, it's to high school kids, it's still really cool to be really strong. At least for us anyway. So we want to steer into that. So we don't really separate a ton because we want to immersify that culture within our building. Like I said, we're not a massive school. So like, we'll hand out t-shirts during the summer, and we'll have kids who are not involved in any sports as part of our summer program. And when they get that shirt for being here over 80% of the time, like, they are fired up, and they'll wear it in the hallways and strut around like their stuff don't stink. So it's part of our culture and who we are. But kind of that long-term athletic development, that fitness for life piece. So we'll focus on, maybe with those kids, some side conversations are, hey, when you go to X public gym, like, you may not have this, but what would be similar? And so then they start to talk through, oh, I could do this instead. And then we kind of dive into that piece. So one thing we did, as far as our part of our curriculum is, they build out a training plan. They'll build out a 4-week training plan as kind of a semester project. And so we'll walk through kind of what's a rep range or intensity for strength, for size, for power, everything there. And then we talk through kind of how we structure the tier system with it. So they not only get the knowledge of what we're doing in the room, but then they get that long-term knowledge of, hey, if I'm going to go out, if I'm not an athlete at all and I want to go train on my own, how does this fit together with what we're doing? And then once I graduate, hey, I have the tools and the resources to be able to go to a public gym and go ahead and do that, whether I've been an athlete or not. So we kind of, the more the education and just letting those kids understand of, hey, I'm not an athlete, but this is healthy for me, kind of tying all those pieces together.
That's freaking awesome, because, that's one of our goals here. We talk as a staff. We always say we want our kids to graduate and leave, and not just say, hey, coach, can you send me a new program? Can you send me something? I want them to be able to go into the gym and be like, okay, I'm doing this. I should, they see too many social media workouts that are terrible. And it's like, if you can teach them how to set up structure, and then understand that, okay, you don't need to do 3x10 every time you come in. You do those two things, you're already better than 90% of the population. You've got like basically mini interns by the time they graduate. I bet some of them do turn around and say, hey, I like this a lot. I come back and intern and do all that. So you're building.
Yeah, actually,
for yourself.
The first intern I had was actually a senior my first year here. Didn't take the class with me, but he would come in and train in the morning. And I was new, so I'm just trying to figure out the landscape and everything there. And out of the blue, his sophomore year of college, he goes, hey, I kind of want to go into this. Been following what you guys have done since I graduated. I'd like to intern and get into the field. And so that's how that lined up there. So yeah, just kind of developing and showing kids the way, and hopefully it reciprocates and helps you out down the road.
And it's so much better than just saying, all right, guys, like, Gen Pop guys, if you want to go sit in the elliptical for an hour, go do that. And I see too many public gyms where it's just, they need some guidance. They need some structure, and it takes it to another level. Coach, this is a question we usually ask it at the beginning, but I wanted to wait till the end. I figured we, mix it up a little bit here, but you've built a phenomenal life for yourself. Got your family. You're doing great things there. It's awesome. Again, I'm jealous of your weight room. It looks great. If you guys haven't seen it on social media, check it out. But it's a lot of long hours. I'm not going to say it's low pay, right? We're getting better. It's getting better. We're not Nick Saban, so we're not making millions yet, but there's a lot of love there. And there's a reason, you're still doing this instead of going into a different career, doing this instead of just doing a 9-to-5. So what is it you love about strength conditioning and sports and all that in general that motivates you and keeps you going? What is that love? What is that reason?
I think it's a sense of community, is the number one thing. Like you can pull so many life lessons into not only a weight room, but sport. And so I learned a ton through my experiences, but I also wanted to get into this field because I had really good coaches in high school, but they were sport coaches that weren't strength coaches. And we've all been there. And I saw a need for that. And I don't want this to come across as a knock to my coaches, because I loved my coaches, but it was one of those of how can I provide a better experience for kids in the future? And I knew it was something that I felt like there was a need. And it was something I had a passion for. So that was kind of my motivation to get into it. And I felt like it could be a catalyst to help build an overall better person and better athlete, by teaching those life lessons through the challenges, the trials, the tribulations, through training, sport, having those conversations of, hey, you may be dealing with your sport because of this. Now let me be an avenue to have that conversation and kind of build you up. Or, hey, you're having really good success. but it may be going to your head. And in life, if that happens, like, you may come crumbling down. Let me pull you back and let's have those conversations there. So I think having the ability to make a difference is kind of a big piece for me. I also come from a family of educators. Tons of aunts and uncles and cousins are teachers. So I grew up seeing the impact that they could have. My dad was a police officer when I grew up, and he was a DARE officer. So I would see him going into classrooms and having an impact there. So having all those different background pieces to fall back on and understand of, hey, there's a lot of impact and a lot of positive that can come from this, I think outweighs the the lack of pay. Like, to me, I mean, it is what it is. That's education, but no one gets into education and coaching for the money. I feel like if you truly get into it for the right reasons, you're into it to make a difference and to try and build better lives for people. And that's always been my focus.
And I will say, just in our brief conversation here today, I feel the community that you're building over there and the sense of pride that you have in your piece building community. It's not just you. It's not just, the athletic director support. It takes everybody. And it sounds like you're building something really special there. Coach, I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you talking. Are there things you need to promote? Anything you want to talk about? Anyone you want to give a shout out to? Just want to make sure you have your chance right now,
Yeah. Obviously, I mentioned it before, but unbelievably supportive school board, school district community here helps us grow a lot of things. Got to shout out my Nebraska crew, group of coaches here in Nebraska that have helped me grow as a coach. On that note, I would say any coaches listening, if you don't have that group chat or that circle of coaches that you can go to with any questions, start reaching out to people, and I'll be the first person you guys can reach out to, because my career has grown and developed because of people and connections I've made. And that's really challenged me to be a better coach and a better person. The next group I got to shout out to the NatCon crew. Those people know who they are. It's a group chat of 20 people. And I think since I've been on, my phone's been blowing up. It's probably those Yahoos blowing up 40 text messages, because most of it's not even about coaching. But it's a great resource to just have a sense of community and a sense of friendship, while also talk to people and bounce ideas off of who are living the life that we're living. And then obviously my wife, I'd be remiss if I didn't give her a shout out. So
yeah, you'd be in the doghouse if you didn't give her a shout out.
Yeah.
So, Coach, where can they get a hold of you? What's the easiest way to reach you?
Got a ton of ways to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now. Coach N Crouse. I'm on Instagram as well, same handle. We also have school pages on Instagram and Twitter. I think it's Flatview Strength. I may have to shoot you the handles. I'm drawing a blank on those right now.
I'll put them in the show notes.
My school email address is another one. I can give you that email. You have that email address already, so that
the show. Anyone
there
wants to reach out, they
Yep.
Awesome, Coach. Thanks again for jumping on, and thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one. If you enjoyed this podcast, you want to keep getting better, I encourage you to check out my new community, the Gridiron Warrior Insiders. Got it right here on the phone. The app is clutch. There's so many things in there that I think you'll find valuable. We have the weekly film study where you can go live with me, ask any questions you want. There's no Q&A, no big deal. I always have a topic that we're going to hit on every single week, and we record those too if you can't make it. We have the Wildcat webinar. That's where I call somebody else in to run the offense, and they come in and they bring a presentation about something that they're an expert in and give us some fresh insight, new information. I have unreleased podcasts. There's about 10 or 15 that haven't gone live yet. You can listen to them early before anyone else. We have the equipment room, so discounts, whether it's Train Heroic, Plyomat, OVR, or even my own courses. You have discounts in the equipment room. Okay, the free safety, anything that I want to throw in there, bonus programs for yourself as a coach, you name it, it's in there. And we have over 50 coaches right now that are helping each other. So we post questions and coaches will work together and provide insight and share information, because that's what it's all about, is coaches getting better. So if you want to check that out, the links are in my bio, the links at the end of this podcast. Check it out there, Gridiron Warrior Insiders.